we are going to do a little demonstration with all of our trainers. And this is what happens inside our brains, whether we're babies all the way up to adults, of when we're trying to learn a new skill. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about new skills that we've learned, and we're going to demonstrate what that looks like in our brain. All right, so mine, the first thing I remember as a kid growing up learning how to do was riding my bike.
My skill would be skating, specifically rollerblading.
I would say that I learned how to swim.
I learned how to play the piano.
I learned how to tie my shoes.
Learned how to walk.
I learned how to type.
I learned how to read.
All right, thank you. All right, so this is what it looks like inside our brain. So we are the brain cells, and every time we're exposed to a new skill, even if it's just one time, there's a connection that is made to another brain cell. So that's what you can see here. And so if we go back to my example of learning how to ride my bike, what do you think might happen every time I practice riding my bike? So let's see what that might look like. I've fallen off a couple times. My dad held it for me. Now I'm kind of going on my own. And so as you can see, this connection looks different than some of the other connections that I have in my brain, because this represents the practice, right? Every time I get exposed to that new skill, I'm strengthening the connection between the brain cells. And so what do you think might happen, not only with the connection being stronger, but the transferring of the information? What do you all think?
I mean, I think it's going to get faster.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get faster, right? Because it's thicker, it's stronger, because we've had lots and lots of practice. So that's why sometimes when we introduce a song to kids, or we learn how to tie or we're practicing tying our shoe one time, that experience is there, but unless we keep practicing, I'm not going to know how to do it. I got to strengthen that connection in my brain. And so when we think about that connection, it helps us to think about how we're able to just easily remember that muscle memory of being able to think about the skill without having to do a lot of extra thinking. So for example, if you remember back to learning how to drive a car, when you first got in, you had to adjust your mirror, you had to put your seatbelt on, you would adjust the seat, the side mirrors, and it took a lot of thinking. Whereas now, you've been driving for several years, you just get in, sometimes you pull up in your driveway and you're like, how did I get here? Did I run a red light? I don't even remember, because your connection is so strong and so fast that you don't even have to really think about it. The other thing to think about when we think about the brain development is something called neural pruning. And so when we think about neural pruning, we have all these connections, right? Because we could talk about a ton of different things and just keep tossing the yarn back and forth, and this web would just continue to get bigger, and some of the connections would get stronger and faster. But neural pruning takes place when we don't use the information. So the brain is developed to be either use it or lose it. It's dependent on the usage. And so if you think about, especially now since we all use our cell phones a lot, how many of us don't remember numbers unless we have our phone book from our phone, right? And so there might be a few numbers that you remember, probably ones that you use a lot, like a spouse or a child or something like that. But other ones, we don't remember them. And that's because, again, if we don't use it, we lose it. So after I've learned how to play the piano as a child, but I don't do it anymore, what happens is I lose that experience. That doesn't mean that that connection can't be remade and I can't then again strengthen it, but it's like an organization way that the brain takes all of the experiences, because there's so much coming in, a way that it organizes all of the information. So again, if we're not using it, we lose it. And then if we do use it a lot and we repeat it, then that's where that gets strengthened and faster. So that is just a little demonstration about what it looks like inside the brain when we're learning new skills.